Welcome to the DRGN SLYR Podcast by Frontier Credit Union. I am Steven. With me, as always, is Bailey. And today's guest, Gentry from Cordova Coolers. Gentry, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. Okay, you and I had lunch, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. Something like that. Yeah, pre-Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We talked mostly about the Chiefs during that lunch, but it was a good conversation. What are your feelings on the Mahomes family? Just if we could review that topic.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, just to make it clear that I didn't jump on this bandwagon. I was born and raised in Kansas. I wandered through the wilderness with that franchise. 50 years between Super Bowls is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a huge Royals fan, have been my entire life. My thoughts on the Mahomes family are that I love the quarterback they raised. I mean, that guy, what he's done for that city, for both states, you know, not everybody knows because there have been some well-televised slip-ups, but the Arrowhead Stadium at Truman Sports Complex is in Kansas City, Missouri.
Correct.
However, 60% of the season ticket holders reside in the state of Kansas, which is only about the state line's 10 minutes from the stadium.
Yeah, it's right there.
But
yeah.
I love the quarterback that they've raised, and I love what he's done for the whole region of the country.
I love how you sidestepped the question just a little bit.
Well, I will say one other thing. I do have a Team Brittany T-shirt.
I love that.
I'm here for Brittany all day long. I'm here for Taylor all day long.
Uh-huh.
My daughter's first time in Arrowhead Stadium, my middle daughter, actually wasn't for a Chiefs game. It was for the Reputation Tour, which she went to with her mom, and is still one of the highlights of her young life. So
Yeah. How do you feel about Travis Kelce getting after Andy Reid on the sideline?
I think Travis knows it was too much. He
Yeah.
said as much.
Yeah.
And I think you're not going to find a guy that handles that better than Andy Reid
Oh
did.
my gosh.
So
yeah.
true.
Yeah, he was well within his rights to cold cock that guy.
And Travis knows it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but passions flare up. There is no bigger game, and luckily they've got a future Hall of Fame coach that just keeps his cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know that that's what people are listening today to hear about, but
Understood.
we needed to follow up on some of those items from the other day. But okay, so Cordova Coolers. I own 2 of
Thank you.
these. I love them. They're much better than Yetis, right? Much
Totally
better.
true.
Yeah, I don't know why, but they are. Of course, we're having Yeti on next week, and so we'll change how we talk about that. But yeah,
They're probably Cowboys fans.
I can't believe that they are. Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah. So tell us, how did you get to Cordova? Because this is kind of an interesting story and different than a lot of the stories that we've heard on this podcast before.
Sure. So my partner and I own and operate it. We did not start the business. It
Right.
was started by a guy named Scott Campbell, Captain Scott Campbell, who was one of the captains on the Discovery Channel show Deadliest Catch. So you would think there would be a great origin story about the trials of, going up against the Bering Sea and, man meets nature and all that. It was more about Scott wanting to design a better cooler for his Mastercraft boat.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. He did design an excellent cooler. And he had some cachet from being Captain Scott Campbell that he was able to parlay into a meeting with Mastercraft. And so to this day, we're the original equipment manufacturer for Mastercraft's boats. The cooler that comes with the boat that fits in there is made by us right here in Idaho's Treasure Valley. Scott had a lot of things competing for his time, Deadliest Catch being probably principal among them.
Yeah.
So, long story short, my partner and I were introduced to the owners of the business in the spring of 2020. And if you think back to the spring of 2020, the NBA was shut down and had not yet got into a bubble, right? Times were dark, real dark. So we just kept a dialogue going that year, and because of largely the impacts of the pandemic, it was a turnaround opportunity, but all the equipment was here on site ready to make coolers, and we were looking for something new to do, and that's how we got introduced to it. And I just want to say thanks to Scott for designing great coolers and
Yeah.
setting up a great company.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go back in time just a little bit here, because you took over in 2020,
August of 2020.
2020. Okay. Tell us about you and your partner and like your origin story. Where did you guys come from?
Oh, sure.
How did you get to know one another?
Yeah, we met, it's been 20 plus years ago now, back in business school.
Mm-hmm.
And both were just interested in doing something where we felt like we had some degree of autonomy, some measure of control, and have worked together on a few different businesses over the years, and by this time have made ourselves completely unemployable. I mean, we got no plan B. There's nobody looking to hire these two jackasses.
Yeah.
I'll keep it PG-13.
I'm trying to think, what's the worst thing that's been said on this podcast?
Oh, we can top it.
Yeah.
We can go for it.
It's probably stuff I've said, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
People have dropped F-bombs and stuff like that on this
We'll
podcast.
keep it
Yeah.
below that. But yeah, so like I said, we've worked together highs and lows for over 2 decades now, and have different skill sets. He's more the finance guy, I'm more the operations guy, and we got a good thing going.
So what was like the first business that you two went in on, if you can remember?
Let's see. I'd say the first thing that was a business rather than a deal was back in the late 2000s, and I have to give Jason the credit for doing the heavy lifting on this. He set up a hard money bridge funding real estate company and got institutional backing, and was what really had that up and operating, and things were going great. And then the Great Recession hit.
Right.
And again, I got to give him credit for working through that, because there were some messes.
Yeah.
And those are probably stories that he's better equipped to tell than me. But hurricane, I think it was Isabel, that hit Galveston, definitely factored into some appraised values in a negative way.
Right.
When your lots are underwater, they're worth less.
Makes sense.
But
yeah.
I think that was the first one. And some real estate focused and then lending type operations was kind of where we started out.
What was the most fun thing that you guys have done together?
Well, I would say this isn't business related necessarily, but and I didn't understand the impact of it at the time. But I mentioned I grew up in Kansas. My dad grew up on a farm in rural Kansas. The house he grew up in never did get indoor plumbing.
Wow.
And my folks were out visiting, and my dad, Jason, has his pilot's license, and my dad said, "Do you think he'd take us up in his plane?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, he would." And I'm like, "Hey, my dad wants to go up in your plane." He's like, "Yeah, where do you want to go?" Dude, just whatever you think is good. So he took my parents and I up to McCall for breakfast, and we flew back, and I thought, that was nice. But my dad says that's one of his like top 5 experiences in his life.
Yeah.
And so I would say that being able to do that for, somebody I love was one of the funnest things. And I didn't understand the impact of it at the time. But yeah, that just jumped to the top of my mind when you said that. And I think that was last summer, or maybe the summer before, but really fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So going back to Cordova, you do a deal there, you take over. What next? What was the state of the place when you walked in?
Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. The equipment was all there to manufacture the coolers. There were some significant design flaws that needed to be remedied, that have been remedied. There were some significant personnel shortfalls that needed to be addressed immediately.
Like you didn't have people or the right people, or what was the issue there?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
And when it had shut down in the spring, it had, for all intents and purposes, never really come back in terms of keeping track of, inventory, financial reporting, customer support requests, anything like that. So it wasn't a startup, it was a restart.
Yeah, interesting.
And then plus, I have a general idea of how manufacturing works. I didn't know jack crap about rotomolding, which is as much art as science.
Mm.
You can think you're doing the same thing twice and come out with two parts that don't work, or one works and one doesn't. And you can chase your tail right down the rabbit hole and back out again trying to figure out why.
Interesting. Was at that point in time, was the facility in Idaho?
Yes.
It was. Okay.
Yes. So the real estate came with the or they were two transactions, but we also acquired the real assets.
Right.
And the oven was there, the molds were there, the foaming fixtures were there. There were some capital expenditures we had to make pretty quickly, but you could make a cooler on day one.
Yeah.
They're better now.
Yeah. It wasn't maybe quite the right cooler, but you could do it. Yeah.
You could do it.
So can we go into the people problem that you had when you walked in just a little bit?
Sure.
What were you missing? Who was in the wrong seat?
Sure.
What was going on there?
So when they'd shut down, everybody had been laid off, let go, right? And when they sort of started back up with a skeleton crew, they brought back 4 key people, one for sales, one for operations, and then 2 in production. And of those 4, we've still got 1, and he's awesome. He's great. He's kind of the heartbeat of the place. The other 3 were not in the right place.
Right.
And I don't know if off the top of your head you remember some of the labor shortages that came around during the pandemic.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
But we're trying to hire people on an hourly basis to do hard work. And that has moderated, but it was incredibly hard to do in that sort of fall of 2020, spring, summer of 2021. So trying to ramp up production and get people to show up at 6 a.m. for a 10-hour day when it's hot, and figure out what the prevailing market wage is today. Oh, wait, no, it moved.
Well, it was moving like weekly. It felt like,
That was, I think, what we felt were the big challenges.
Yeah, so this is an issue that comes up pretty frequently. Is sometimes you hire the wrong person and they end up in the wrong spot. Sometimes they're on the right bus, they're just in the wrong seat. Sometimes they're on the wrong bus altogether.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting problem that people have to work through. And so when you still have one of those people, how did you make the determination this person's not for us? I think there's some important lessons for people to learn on how to work through this.
Oh, geez. I would say in 2 of the cases they self-selected out, but we knew it.
Yeah.
Right? It was mutual. Setting clear expectations was the key to figuring out whether it was a square peg in a round hole. And then the third one was kind of just a messy blow up. I mean, hiring's tough.
It's hard.
You're rolling the dice.
Yep.
I'm not good at it. And my track record would show you that. It's just, how did we figure out who to keep? Just did they want to be there?
Yeah.
That was step 1.
Yeah. And
were they willing to adapt with us? That was where I would say we lost 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you're right, hiring is so hard. And even the people who are really good at it, they still make bad hires. Right? That still happens. And
yeah, I've used recruiters and still make bad hires.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. I still got to pay the commission.
That's right. It lasted 2 weeks, and I still got to pay for it.
91 days, and there was a 90-day out on it.
That's right.
How many employees do you have now?
We have about 20.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we've gone up and down. We do have capacity to increase production from where we are, which would mean hire more people. But right now we're right around 20, and that's a good sort of steady state. And we have a good base of cross-trained people that can do most of what needs to be done in the process, because there's about 8 different stages, right? So if you got somebody that can only do 1, that's less valuable than somebody that can do 6 of the 8.
Yeah. So when you got in, you had some personnel issues that you had to clean up. You had some sounds like some manufacturing issues that you had to work through.
Some, yeah.
Can you tell us about that? How did you figure out what was wrong there?
The molds, so rotational molding is like I said, a little bit of an art form, right? The process takes a long time. Like from the time we tighten up the molds to the time we pull parts off is an hour. And you can run multiple arms through the oven in that time, but it takes an hour to make a cooler just to form it. The advantage is it's one piece, it's a unibody, monobody, whatever you want to call it. No seams, nothing's going to break.
Right.
It's incredibly strong and durable. But if you don't have things like the rotation cycle set correctly, like how many times is this supposed to rotate on the x-axis in 1 minute? How many times is the plate supposed to rotate along the y-axis, because it rotates in 2 planes, right? How hot is the oven supposed to get? Because you can have it too cold so the plastic doesn't flow, and then you've got walls that are too thin. You can have it too hot and you're overcooking the parts and they will actually burn. And then you've got to adjust for things like static charge. If you've got some sort of colorant in it, it'll run towards where the electrical charge is, right?
Oh, interesting.
So the process of learning that hadn't been distilled and communicated to everybody who was responsible for it. So trying to do that, it's never ending, but we've gotten much better at it. But there were a couple, I mentioned, just sort of silly design issues that had just been allowed to persist due to other fires burning brighter.
Right.
I'll tell you what they are.
Sure.
Because we might as well be honest. If you got a cooler that was made before 2021, if you turn it over, I can get what is, if you're looking at it from the front, upside down, the back left foot out of it with my right hand. I can get in there and it'll pop out.
Oh, interesting.
Because it never seated correctly. Because the stem was 6/100ths of an inch too small, so it wouldn't get past the plastic wall, so the foot could expand.
Right. Interesting.
Also,
those are collector's items now.
We'll
right?
bring it in.
It's
we'll put a new foot in it. I mean, we'll fix it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a known issue that hadn't been addressed, and the fix was send them some Gorilla Glue.
Yeah.
Well, if you buy a couple hundred, few hundred, several $100 cooler, you don't want to get told, here, put some Gorilla Glue on it and bang it back in. That's Bush League.
Right. Yeah.
I would say the other major issue was that T-latches that hold the lid in place, hold it shut, right, were just way too stretchy and didn't effectively hold it. And that's just a matter of tightening
Wrong
up.
kind of rubber, or is it
Just
some other
changing the durometer, which is the stiffness measure of the rubber.
I was going to pretend like I knew what that meant.
You tried.
Oh, yeah. You just change the durometer
You know what
and it'll
to
be
do.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what to do. It's just a matter of doing it.
Right. Yeah.
So those are the two major just like form and function issues. And, a few more persisted along the way, and we continue to try and refine and improve it. But
what's the next iteration of a Cordova cooler? What needs to be addressed now?
So it's a good question, because I should figure out the next one was sort of, for lack of a better term, coordinating or harmonizing the colorways. Like we would have one blue for our hard cooler, a different blue for our soft coolers, a different blue for our drinkware, and now they're all the same. It's one Pantone color across that sort of area of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grays and blues have been standardized. Blacks and whites have been standardized, and just sort of bringing it all together like we've thought about it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean, now you're speaking my language, right? Because I do deal with a lot of branding.
Okay.
And color is one of the most overlooked items that people so frequently get wrong.
Yeah.
So frequently get wrong. It's wild how often people get it wrong.
Well, how do you mean?
Well, so first of all, unless you're like really trained in that space, if you really know what you're talking about, like you talk about a Pantone color, I know what that means. I bet 99% of our audience doesn't know what that means.
Well, I know Bailey knows, because
Bailey definitely does. Yeah. What Pantone value are those boots there, Bailey?
No idea.
The right one.
Yeah, they're the right.
Yeah.
And so you're exactly right. You'll see a brand represented in a couple of different places, all with different colors. And like they'll have like the official Pantone color, but the exterior paint color for their building is different.
Yeah.
Versus the interior paint color of the same building
Yeah.
is different yet again. And so getting all that stuff matched up is actually very challenging. Can be very, very difficult. Just because color gets represented in different mediums really differently.
For sure.
Because a blue is not just a blue, right? There's a million shades of blue.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking about like the finish of a blue on this cup where it's a little bit shiny will be really, really different than the finish of blue on this mug, because they're just different finishes and it changes the look. Anyway, it's an interesting, really interesting topic.
While we're on this topic of like color, what is your most popular cooler and in what color?
The most popular cooler is our sandstone in the 48 quart. So sandstone starts with a base of natural resin, then a sand color, and then it has an additional additive to give it the stone look. And that's what I was talking about, that is in particular prone to chasing static charge. So you got to put a bounce dryer sheet in there when you're running those, or your granite, your sand, your stone. They're all going to go different. It's going to be splotchy. Yeah.
Interesting.
But what I love about the sandstone is it doesn't look pristine. So when it gets beat up, it's still going to look great.
Yeah.
Right. When it comes out of the back of your truck, when you drag something across the top of it, it's going to weather and wear really well.
Yeah. It sort of adds to the effect a little bit.
Yeah. The scars tell a story.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sandstone 48's our most popular.
What's your personal favorite?
My personal favorite is the murdered out obsidian 48. So the 48's the medium size. We have a 20 quart, 28, 48, 88, and then the 128's the beast. That's where you hide the body.
Right.
But the 48 quart's big enough for one person to carry, but it's big.
Yeah.
Or small enough for one person to carry, but it's big. But what I like about the obsidian is it's black. And it's black because the resin is recycled. It's reground. So polyethylene is the base component, and it can be endlessly recycled. Just regrind it. So you take all the mistakes, regrind it back to the resin, mix it together, but they've all got different colorants added to them at this point, so it all turns black at the end of the day. And then on top of that, we put black side plates and matte blacked out decals. And it's like, I've said this once and it was misinterpreted, but it's like if Batman had a cooler, that's his cooler. But I'm not talking about like 1960s Batman. I'm talking about like Christopher Nolan's Batman. Yeah, not like Adam West. Yeah.
You could do an Adam West themed.
We could. We did a Ricky Bobby one. It was pretty
Did you
cool.
really?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it shook and baked.
Yeah.
It was cool.
I will say, so I own the, I don't know what you call it, but it's the one that has, like, it looks like a cow.
Oh, cowhide, yeah.
Cowhide, yeah. And then it has an actual roping dummy head that goes with it.
Yep.
And I love it. I think it's the coolest idea for a cooler I've ever seen. And I'll go to like a roping event or something like that, and I'll bring that thing, and people will just sit around roping the cooler.
Yeah, it's fun.
And everybody asks me about it. Everywhere I take that thing, people are like, "Where in the world did you get that thing?"
It's cool.
Yeah, it's a great conversation piece. Yeah.
I can't take credit for designing that. One of our customers did. He's an
cool.
industrial designer and just a super cool dude. And he brought his, early on, in my Cordova days, he brought his cooler in. I'm like, you have tricked that cooler out well, my guy. And yeah, he designed it, and the head is actually roto molded as well, but it's done by High Country Plastics, which is just out in Caldwell, another roto molding shop, but just with a different industry focus, and that's where we happen to have a little bit of overlap.
That's so
cool.
funny.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's really cool. Speaking of customizing, what are the chances I could get a cooler with this print?
100%.
Oh, sold.
That's kind of the fun part of manufacturing, right?
So
like
cool.
we do all the design in-house. The digital printer was one of the pieces of equipment we had to buy that I mentioned.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But we print it in-house. It's the same sort of wrap that you would put on any commercial vehicle, so
Right.
it's made to be out in the sun, get beat up. It's got a matte laminate with a UV filter on top of it, so the pink will stay vibrant. But we could do that exact pattern all over it. And one of the other things that we do that's kind of fun is we'll have some leftover resin every once in a while, right? Like you're running a batch and you might have a couple pounds left over.
Mm-hmm.
It's an odd color. You know, we mix them all together and make up engineering coolers. We call them mystery coolers on our website, but some of them are pink.
That's cool.
And especially come October, those are popular. But we could do it. Yeah, I mean, that's the fun part of it, is creating stuff that is truly unique.
Yeah.
But
that.
yeah, 100% is the chance.
Nice. I'm
That's
getting myself one.
You should, yeah.
Ordering it today.
I know for the credit union, we've purchased a number that you've custom printed for us and
Thanks to the
put our
business.
brand on it. And yeah, we love them. And every time we do a giveaway, it is the most popular item every single time.
Nice.
Like we're giving away, like, here's a Traeger grill, here's a four-wheeler, and everyone's like, that, I want the cooler. Actually, that's the one I want.
Fun to
It's
hear.
really
Thanks.
cool. Yeah,
That's cool.
it's really cool. Where did the name come from?
At Frontier Credit Union, we offer startup loans for emerging businesses to help support you in the early stages of growth. This could be for inventory, equipment, or other operating expenses. Almost all businesses qualify. Get started today by visiting our site, frontiercreditunion.com, federally insured by the NCUA.
Where did the name come from?
I can't take credit for that either.
Okay.
Got to give credit to Scott for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the company is named after the town of Cordova, Alaska. So it's a place. And it is a very unique, distinct, special place, really. The town's about 2,500 people. It's not far from where the Exxon Valdez ran aground in the late 1989.
Yeah.
It devastated the economy in Cordova when the oil flowed that way.
Right.
The herring run has never
Never
resumed.
recovered.
Yeah,
Wow.
the salmon were gone for I think 7 years.
Yeah.
It's a fishing town, as you might have inferred. It is on the mainland, on the continent of North America, but it is inaccessible by road or rail. So for all practical purposes, it's an island. You need to fly there or take a boat or ship. And so to fly there, it's kind of cool too, because Alaska Airlines does what they call the milk run, where they fly out of Seattle, hit 3 stops between Seattle and Anchorage, and Cordova's one of them. So, that's where the name came from. Super cool place. We went and visited it after we bought the company because we felt like we should know our roots a little bit.
Yeah.
The locals rolled out the red carpet for us. It was special. It is special. But it's a commercial fishing town in a crazily beautiful but also sort of brutal part of the world. One other fun fact, it's got, for sure it's North America's, there might be 2 in the world, but for sure it's North America's only single seat chairlift. So you can ride up with all your friends if you're me and you're going skiing. And it's just right outside of town. So you've got the ocean meets the mountains and then glaciers flowing right past town as well. It's cool.
Yeah, I've met some people from not Cordova, but people from Alaska, and they're different. Like you can tell how much more rugged they are just because of that environment and the world that they live with every single day. Like they're just tough, rugged people. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, we sat one night at one of the dinners they put on for us across from a guy who had his boat sunk out from underneath him in the Gulf of Alaska and been, hoisted into a helicopter by the Coast Guard all in a day's work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
And he probably didn't think it was that big of a deal.
I mean, no. He went back to work the next day. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so wild. So our CFO at the credit union lived in, is it Juneau? I want to say Juneau for a number of years. And he, every now and again, he'll drop these little stories about Alaska and things that he did. He was telling me that water in that Gulf, even in the middle of summer, you'll get hypothermic in like 5 minutes, right? And you're toast. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in the Navy, we had a training detachment up on Kodiak Island,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all for cold weather. That's why you went to Kodiak,
Right.
was to get proficient at operating in the cold weather. And one of the things you had to do was go stand out there up to your chest.
Oh my gosh.
For I think the official time was 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but the real time was until the guy running the evolution felt like
It was enough. Yeah.
And then you had to come in and break out your pack and set up your shelter and get warm.
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
and
Before
the
you froze.
Yeah, the first thing that goes right is
Yeah,
your
all
fine
your
motor skills.
dexterity goes away.
so
Yeah.
you know, trying to just use your wrists to get it open, and yeah, it's cold. It's cold.
I have a friend who's kind of an outdoorsman, and if he's out in cold weather, he's constantly just doing this to see how cold he is, basically, to see if he's losing any of that dexterity out of his hands. And he knows if he's starting to really struggle with that, it's time to get warm.
It'll kill you.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so for people like me, what are you doing?
All he did, he would touch each one of his fingers to his thumb, like this. And just like Gentry saying, like when you get really, really cold, your hands just don't work anymore.
You can't grip.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You can't grip.
I see.
You can't do this anymore. And so that's one of the tests that he would use to make sure
your
he
hands
was
just
okay.
turn into not even claws because you just mallets, I guess.
Yeah, they're like cement blocks
Yeah.
after a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Okay, so you've been at Cordova, 4 years, almost 4
Coming up.
years. Yeah.
Coming up.
What's been the biggest challenge that you've had to work through over that 4 years?
I'd say the one that probably is transferable is just building the right team.
Yeah.
Right? Like we had some pandemic related challenges, so did everybody else.
Right.
Who knows, what lessons to draw from that to store away for the next pandemic, I don't know.
Right.
But just building a team of people that are interdependent and mission driven.
Mm-hmm.
I know nobody is going to be as like all in as I am, right?
Sure.
Or other than my partner.
Right.
Right. But that's I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you get people that are willing to do what needs to be done beyond just what's in black and white on their job description to help us keep moving forward?
Right.
And I don't know the answer, right? I'm still trying to figure it out. But that's I think existential challenge is instilling some sort of sense of purpose when at the end of the day people are there because you're paying them to be there.
Right.
How do you get more out of them?
Yeah, man, that's such a...
instead of help them understand that it's worth it to do more. I guess
Yeah.
maybe a better way to say it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. You're right, though. The delta between like a useful, serviceable employee to a great employee is what's not in the job description, right? That's really an interesting way to think about it. You used an interesting word there when you described that. You used the word interdependent. Tell me what you mean by that.
I mean, I can do what I need to do,
Uh-huh.
right? And I know what needs to be done, but there are things I need you to do so that I don't have to do them.
Yeah.
And I'm counting on you to do them. And then in the case of like our production manager, there's stuff he knows how to do that I don't.
Sure. Yeah.
So I am dependent on him. He's dependent on me to get him the materials to keep doing things,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And to help him hire good people. We need each other. And how do we make sure we're showing up for each other
Mm-hmm.
and meeting each other's expectations?
Yeah.
If not, hopefully maybe exceeding them.
Sure.
Yeah.
You used another term, and I maybe I can't quite remember it, but mission focused or mission
Let's
something
go with
like that.
Sure.
What do you mean when you say that?
So what are y'all about,
Mhm.
right? That's the existential question everybody's trying to ask themselves. And I think what we've tried to boil it down to is good people making great coolers, right? You don't got it. We're not looking for great people. We're certainly not looking for perfect people.
Yeah.
I got my demons. Everybody's battling something, right? But just try to do what you can. Show up, and if we work together and trust each other with that interdependency, what we make can be greater than the sum of the parts. So good people can make great coolers. And I think you can get as flowery with the language as you want, but that's trying to keep it simple.
Yeah. That's at its core.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You're right, though. You can take good people and do great things with
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
If they understand the why, right? And I'm plagiarizing and bastardizing this quote, but if people understand the why, they can handle almost any how.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to suck, but here's why we're doing it.
Mhm.
Oh, all right. Let's go embrace the suck for a minute then.
Yeah. Embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Oh, so how do you build that kind of team and environment at Cordova?
You know, somebody may check me hard on this, but I think it's by being willing to do everything you're asking anybody else to do,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't be the one with your feet up when there's work to be done,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially with a small team, you know, for example, we'll get containers of components that show up that aren't on pallets, which means they're coming off box by box, and
Yeah. It's a pain.
it's a 53-foot trailer or a 40-foot container. Now's not the time to be hard to find. Now's the time to get out there and start slinging some boxes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. What's next for you guys? What's the next hill that you want to climb?
I would like to have our name known more broadly. I
Mhm.
think we've got a lot of room still to do in the Treasure Valley. I'm thrilled that you've found us all the way out in eastern Idaho,
Mhm.
but we're still a very sort of niche brand
Mm.
in what we would consider to be the Pacific Northwest,
Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
I don't think we've established ourselves even on the seaboard of
Right.
so to sort of branch out of that and be known for the things that do make us different, right? Like we are manufacturing our roto-molded coolers in America. The 800-pound gorillas in this category aren't. They're importing them, right?
Mm.
And so that's a differentiator for us. I'll make you a pink cooler with a pink wrap on it because it's going to be something you love and it's going to be the last cooler you buy in your life.
Totally.
Right? That's another thing that is we're capable of doing that we need to do a better job of promoting and getting the word out on. And then I think we sell at an exceptional value for what you get. I mentioned my dad earlier. You know, he grew up born in the Depression, so has a certain mindset about value.
Yeah.
And cheap is not the same as
Correct.
inexpensive is not the same as good. And so he would go to auctions, estate sales, things like that when I was growing up. And I remember one time he called us. My mom had dropped him off because there was a truck he was going to bid on. And he said, I need you to come pick me up. I bought the truck. She's like, you bought the truck and you need a ride? It's like, it's $150. It don't run. But he's got the truck. So sat in our front yard for a few years.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think, something that my dad always told me was that buy quality, take care of it, and it'll take care of you.
Yeah, take care of your gear, and your gear will take care of you, is what we would say in the Navy,
That's-
right? So
yeah.
when you come in, the first thing you take care of isn't yourself.
Right.
It's the stuff everybody depends on. Then it's the stuff you depend on. Then it's you.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Take
Yeah.
care of your gear, and your gear will take care of you.
That's interesting. My grandpa was in the Navy, and I wonder if that's where that came from, maybe.
I
But-
hope so.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree. I think Cordova represents an incredible value for what you get.
Thank you.
I've owned some of the other big name brands in that space, and I like my Cordova stuff the best, actually.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to grow and expand, become a little bit better known. How are you going to do that? What's the plan there?
Just keep pushing. I think
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything
Magic to it.
I don't think there's any magic to it. I think it's showing up and putting out,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that have to be done before that. I think by and large we've been able to do at this point. Build the right team, make sure the product's ready for market,
Mhm.
ready for prime time, and there's again, I'm stealing this quote, but when you're not sure what your strategy is, you need to try and make money, right? When you know what your strategy is, you need to grow.
Right.
And take the longer view. And
Yeah.
I hope, that's where my head's at. I hope it's in the right spot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really interesting way to look at it, actually. What's the scariest thing on the horizon for you?
I'm not familiar with that term.
Just
I'm just messing with
Okay.
you. When my son asks me if something hurts, I'm like, I don't know what that word means. I do know what the word scary means. I just don't think about
it
it.
was funny. You said that to me, and I was like, "Oh, what?" I don't know how to say that differently.
That's as
Yeah.
simple as it gets, bro.
He was like dead serious.
Oh
You're
my
like,
gosh, he got me on
Yeah,
that.
he
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
No, I think if you're prepared, all you can do is keep going. I'll tie it back to kind of where we started. We were talking to some buddies the morning of Super Bowl Sunday, and they're like, "Are you nervous?" I'm like, "No, man, we're prepared."
Yeah.
And I'm just a stupid fan. What do
Right.
I know? But I knew the work had been put in.
Yeah.
Right. So at some point, you've done what you can do. Just go.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
go. And if something pops up, you deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to spend my time being scared about what might pop up.
Mm-hmm.
that's really good like advice for like entrepreneurs, because I think it's so scary, and often that's what like holds people back
Yeah.
is ever doing it, because you're scared. And so it shows why you've been successful.
Knock on wood. And,
Yeah.
and that's a relative term too, right?
Yeah.
Successful. But I think the flip side of that is ignorance is bliss, and education always costs money. And
Yeah.
man, we've learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. On that note, what other pieces of advice would you give to young entrepreneurs, people just starting off on that path? You've done it for a long time.
I think be optimistic, because nothing is ever going to last forever, right? Whether these are great times, the salad days, or whether they're rock bottom, grinding your teeth on glass days, they're not going to last forever. But just stealing a quote again, but this is Rocky Balboa, just keep moving forward, right? Just keep moving forward. Whatever the next step is, take it. Whatever the next thing is you have to do it. And then reassess, but don't quit. Just do whatever is next. And sometimes the next thing is starting a new chapter, right? Like maybe this particular venture hit a dead end. I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
We've hit dead ends. But that just means you got to turn and find a new path. That sounds more poetic than I turned out better than I thought it would. Yeah. I'll go back to Rocky Balboa. Just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward.
Oh my gosh.
Good.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about what you do?
There's a lot of things I like, but I think at the end of the day, what I find satisfying about this particular business is I like making stuff and giving people an opportunity to manufacture really what I think is a great cooler, a great product in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're able to employ people, they have families they get to take care of, and it's bumpy roads and all that, but I take pride in actually making the product. That's what I like best about this business.
Cool. What's your message to the world?
My message to the world. Damn, you got me on that one. My message, carpe diem. I texted my son out the other day, just seize the day. Right?
Yeah.
And just, I don't know if you only live once, but let's act like you do.
Yeah.
And go get it.
Yeah. It's
Good.
It's good advice as I've heard on this, but you always hear the phrase that the best time to start something was yesterday. The second best time is today.
Yeah, right now.
Right?
Yeah.
It's right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. That's good.
It's good.
All right. Anything else?
No, man. Thanks for the kombucha. I appreciate the opportunity to meet and visit with you.
Yeah.
And
No, it was cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, big fans of what you do, and if there's anything that we can do for you to help you out, we're all ears, because we've really enjoyed using your products and giving them away for giveaways and all sorts of stuff. So
let's just keep doing that.
let's keep doing it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, Gentry, again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us on the DRGN SLYR Podcast by Frontier Credit Union. We'll see you next time.
Woo!